Shalom. I want to start by giving all praise and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushai, Bahashem Hakadosh. Double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone who are well. Shalom to all you Akim who be pushing this word around the globe in faith and sincerity. We are the true Hebrew Israelites. The true Israelites are you so-called Negroes, Latinos, Hispanics, Native Americans, West Indians, Dominicans, Haitians, Jamaicans, so on and so forth. We are the true descendants of the man in the Bible who is named Israel. And if you happen to look like any of the other nations and this word resonates with your spirit, then there's a chance that you too might be an Israelite, because Israel's seed has been scattered amongst all nations, and therefore we look like all the peoples of the world now. But it really depends on who your father is, because your seed line, which is your nationality, is determined by who your father was. I think that's Numbers 1 and 21. Yeah, but your father determines your nationality. So, again, if your seed line goes back through your father to a man named Israel, then you could be an Israelite. If you want to learn more, just Google GMS 12 tribe sign. So in today's lesson, as you can see, I've got on the screen this picture here. I went to the cinema, was it Wednesday night, I think, to watch The Lion King, the new CGI adaptation of The Lion King. Now, when I was watching it, obviously, I watched it when it first came out in the cinema, the animated version back in, was it 1994? I watched the original animated version then, and I just watched the new adaptation, which is CGI. And obviously now I'm older, I was watching it with a very spiritual mindset. I mean, I already felt some spiritual things about the original version, but this version, obviously knowing the scriptures to the extent that I know now, I was just watching it thinking, damn, this is straight from the Bible, man. So let's get into some of what I saw in this film. So to begin with, first I need to put this out there. This story is not a new story, The Lion King. I mean, Disney didn't create this story. I mean, there's a lot of controversy about this, but the fact is that Disney stole this idea from, I believe it was Osamu Tezuka, if that's the name. They call him the father of manga. Basically, he created characters such as Astro Boy, and another of his famous characters was Kimba the White Lion. Now, this story, Kimba the White Lion, was taken by Disney. They didn't pay for it, they didn't give no credit for it, but they basically took the story, flipped it a bit, changed Kimba's name to Simba, and they've put this story out. Now, it's a bit of a shame, because I always hate it when I know that someone has stolen someone else's work, but you know, that happens a lot in Hollywood. People's ideas get stolen. But that aside, this story isn't a new story. You know, as Wisdom of Son, Ecclesiastes says, you know, there's nothing new under the sun, and it's very true, because this story, you know, goes back to Kimba the White Lion, but then that goes back to the Holy Scriptures. So let's get into it, yeah? So, Salakia, there's going to be spoilers. Now, I don't know how you can spoil a film that's been out since 1994. I mean, if you haven't watched it by now, or heard of it by now, then, I don't know, maybe you've been living under a rock. But basically, the CGI version of the film is a pretty much copy-paste job of the same story, you know? So, I'm just saying there's going to be spoilers. So, if anybody hasn't seen it, you know, stop the video and go watch it or whatever. So, let's get into it. So, basically, in this picture, you've got the main characters. You've got Mufasa, which is the king of Pride Rock, the jungle. And you've got his son, Simba, yeah? Now, when I was looking at this story, you've got Simba and Mufasa, his father. And Mufasa has a brother who's, you know, the evil one, and he's called Scar. And when I looked at that, obviously being older now, I was thinking, man, this is the story of Jacob and Esau. Because basically, Scar was jealous of Mufasa because Mufasa's the king. You know, he's got the blessing. Scar wants the blessing, and he wants to murder his brother. Just the way, it's just the same kind of thing that happened between Jacob and Esau, where Esau was pissed that Jacob got the blessing, even though Esau had given it up, and then he sought to slay his brother Jacob. So let's get that in the scripture for edification's sake. Let me pull up my scriptures. So we're going to get Genesis 27, I believe. Yeah, this is it, yeah? So this is Genesis 27. Let me go back though. Now let me start from the beginning. Yeah, this is the conception of Jacob and Esau, so you get the full picture. And these are the generations of Isaac. This is Genesis 25 and 19. And Isaac was 40 years old when he took Rebekah to wife, the daughter of Bethuel the Syrian in Padanaram, the sister of Laban the Syrian. And Isaac was entreated to Yahweh for his wife because she was barren. And Yahweh was entreated of him, and Rebekah his wife conceived. So basically, Rebekah was barren. They went and prayed to Yahweh, consulted the prophet, and she conceived children. Yeah, she conceived seed. So in verse 22, and it says, and the children struggled together within her, and she said, if it be so, why am I thus? And she went to inquire of Yahweh. Especially she went to see a prophet. And Yahweh said unto her, 2 nations are in thy womb, and 2 manner of people shall be separated from thy bowels. And the one people shall be stronger than the other people, and the elder shall serve the younger. So, going back to the Lion King briefly, in the film, you have the 2 brothers, Mufasa and Scar. Mufasa is clearly the stronger brother, yeah, and Scar was the weaker, which is why Scar was never. He didn't want to challenge Mufasa to an open out fight because he knew he'd lose. And that goes back to these scriptures here. It says, one people shall be stronger than the other, and the elder shall serve the younger. Now, in the Lion King film, it doesn't say who was first born between Mufasa and Scar, but that's neither here nor there. What you have to do is, just put on your spiritual mindset, and you'll see, hang on a minute, the deeper meanings in these things, So we can't be too simple in these things. We've got to be spiritual. So continuing on in the verse, it says, and when her days were to be delivered were fulfilled, behold, there were twins in her womb. And the first came out red all over like an hairy garment, and they called his name Esau. Now Esau is the progenitor of you so-called white people in the world today. You're not white people. There's no such thing as white people or black people. But there is red people because your blood shows forth through your skin because you lack melanin. So when it said Esau came out red all over like an hairy garment, he wasn't hairy. We used to have garments that were dyed red back in those days. But Esau came out, just like if you Google, let me do it for edification's sake. If I Google newborn baby, let's see what comes up. Well, these babies aren't straight out of the womb. Yeah, this is more like it. Look at this one. See this baby is red all over. Look at that. You can see the colour of the blood and you can see the colour of his body is red all over. That's how Esau came out, because he lacked melanin, okay? So hopefully that's edifying. So, the first came out red all over in Genesis 25:25. The first came out red all over like an hairy garment, and they called his name Esau. Now in Hebrew that is Isashua, which means wasted away is he. Which means that when he came out they were shocked and they're like, whoa, he looks like his skin's wasted away already, And then after came out his brother, and his hand took hold on Esau's heel. And that's spiritual because it shows that Jacob's going to pull Esau down. He's going to pull down Esau's kingdom. And his name was called Jacob. And Isaac was 80 years old when she bare them. So that means Isaac was 60. And the boys grew, and Esau was a cunning hunter, a man of the field. And Jacob was a plain man dwelling in tents. And Isaac loved Esau because he did eat of his venison. But Rebekah loved Jacob. And Jacob sought pottage, and Esau came in from the field, and he was faint. And Esau said unto Jacob, feed me, I pray thee, with that same red pottage, for I am faint. And therefore was his name called Edom. As I said, Edom means red. Now when it said red pottage, it means that it wasn't prepared properly, so the meat was still bloody, I think, if I have the right interpretation. Which is why if you look at the spirit and the nature of the so-called white people who are the Edomites today, they tend to eat their steak rare. Their food is like, always undercooked, running with blood and stuff like that. That shows the nature and the spirit of these people because they're base men, And Esau is the spirit of Cain coming back in reincarnation. But that's a deeper topic. I'll get into that later. So here's the point. It says, and Jacob said, right, hang on, let me go back from verse 30. And Esau said unto Jacob, feed me, I pray thee, with the same red pottage, for I am faint. Therefore was his name called Edom. And Jacob said, sell me this day thy birthright. And Esau said, behold, I am at the point to die. What profit shall this birthright do to me? And Jacob said, swear to me this day. And he swore unto him and sold his birthright unto Jacob. Yeah? Now that was all spiritual because Yahweh always was going to give the birthright to Jacob. But, this is all set up through the spirit. So, bear with me a second. So, then Jacob gave his Esau bread and pottage of lentils, and he did eat and drink, and rose up on his way. Thus Esau despised his birthright. Now we're going to jump into Genesis 27. And it came to pass when Isaac was old that his eyes were dim, so that he could not see. And he called Esau his eldest son, and said unto him, my son. And he said unto him, behold how I am. And he said, behold, look, let me just jump down to the point. It's luckier. Basically, look, I have to get this account, so I better read from the top. I don't want to make it confusing. So, Isaac called his eldest son and said unto him, my son. And he said unto him, behold, here I am. And he said, behold, now I am old. I know not the day of my death. Now therefore take, I pray thee, thy weapons, and thy quiver, and thy bow, and go out into the field, and take me some venison, and make me savoury meat such as I love, and bring it to me, that I may eat, that my soul may bless thee before I die. And Rebekah heard when Isaac spake unto Esau his son, and Esau went into the field to hunt for venison, and bring it. And Rebekah spake unto Jacob his son, saying, behold, I heard thy father speak unto Esau thy brother, saying, bring me venison, and make me savoury meat, that I may eat, and bless thee before Yahweh, before my death. Now therefore, my son, obey my voice according to that which I command thee. Go now to the flock, and fetch me thence 2 good kids of the goats, and I will make them savoury meat for thy father, such as he loveth. And thou shalt bring it to thy father, that he may eat, that he may bless thee before his death. So basically, Jacob and Esau's mother, is it Rebekah? Yeah, Rebekah done a really good thing here. Basically, she's saying that Jacob should be the one to get the blessing. Again, this is all set up through the spirit. And Jacob said to Rebekah his mother, behold, Esau my brother is a hairy man, and I am a smooth man. My father peradventure will feel me, and shall seem to him, and I shall seem to him as the deceiver, and I shall bring a curse upon me, and not a blessing. And his mother said unto him, upon me be thy curse, my son, only obey my voice, and go fetch me them. And he went and fetched and brought them to his mother, and his mother made savoury meat, such as his father loved. And Rebekah took goodly raiment of her eldest son Esau, which were with her in the house, and she put them upon Jacob her younger son. And she put the skins of the kids of the goats upon his hands, and upon the smooth of his neck. And she gave the savoury meat and the bread which she had prepared into the hand of her son Jacob. And he came unto his father and said, my father. And he said, here I am. Who art thou, my son? Jacob said unto his father, I am Esau thy firstborn. I have done according as thou badest me. Arise, I pray thee, sit and eat of my venison, that thy soul may bless me. And Isaac said unto his son, how is it that thou hast found it so quickly, my son? And he said, because Yahweh thy power brought it unto me. And Isaac said unto Jacob, come near, I pray thee, that I may feel thee, my son, whether thou be my very son Esau or not. And Jacob went near unto Isaac his father, and he felt him, and said, this is Jacob's voice, but the hands are the hands of Esau. And he discerned him not, because his hands were hairy as his brother Esau's hands. So he blessed him. Now this is the point. And he said, Art thou my very son Esau? He said, I am. He said, Bring it, and he said, Bring it near to me, and I will eat of my son's venison, that my soul may bless thee. And he brought it near to him, and he did eat, and he brought him wine, and he drank. And his father Isaac said unto him, Come near now, and kiss me, my son. And he came near and kissed him. And he smelled the smell of his raiment, and blessed him, and said, See, the smell of my son is as the smell of the field which Yahweh hath blessed. Therefore power give thee of the dew of heaven, and of the fatness of the earth, and plenty of corn and wine. Let the people serve thee, and nations bow down to thee. Be Lord over thy brethren, and let thy mother's sons bow down to thee. Cursed be every one that curseth thee, and blessed be he that blesseth thee. And it came to pass, as soon as Isaac had made an end of blessing Jacob, and Jacob was scarce gone out from the presence of Isaac his father, that Esau his brother came in from his hunting. And he also made savoury meat, and brought it unto his father, and said unto his father, Let my father arise and eat of his son's venison, that thy soul may bless me. And Isaac his father said unto him, Who art thou? And he said, I am thy son, thy firstborn Esau. And Isaac trembled very exceedingly, and said, Who? Where is he that have taken the venison, and brought it me, and I have eaten of all before thou camest, and have blessed him, yea, and he shall be blessed. Now here's the point. And when Esau heard the words of his father, he cried with a great exceeding bitter cry, and said unto his father, Bless me even also, my father. And he said, Thy brother came in with subtlety, and have taken away thy blessing. And he said, Is he not rightly named Jacob? For he hath supplanted me these 2 times. Which is a lie, because Esau sold his birthright, as I read to you in Genesis 25. Continuing on in verse 36, it says, And he said, Is he not rightly named Jacob? Which means supplanter. For he hath supplanted me these 2 times. He took away my birthright, and behold, now he hath taken away my blessing. And he said, Hast thou not reserved a blessing for me? And Isaac answered and said unto Esau, Behold, I have made him thy lord, and all his brethren I have given him for servants, and with corn and with wine I have sustained him. And what shall I do now unto thee, my son? And Esau said unto his father, Hast thou not one blessing, O my father? Bless me, even me also, O my father. And Esau left up his voice and wept, so he started crying like a bitch. So in verse 39 it says, And Isaac his father answered and said unto him, Behold, thy dwelling shall be the fatness of the earth, and the dew of heaven from above. And by thy sword thou shalt live, and shalt serve thy brother. And it shall come to pass, when thou shalt have the dominion, that thou shalt break his yoke from off his neck. Now here's the point. And Esau hated Jacob because of the blessing wherewith his father blessed him. And Esau said in his heart, The days of mourning for my father are at hand, then will I slay my brother Jacob. So it's lucky, that was quite a long precept that I went into there. But basically, in The Lion King, the plot is that Mufasa's brother Scar, which is a representative of Esau, ends up murdering Mufasa to get the birthright. Yeah? So, and when Scar does get the birthright, what does he do? He basically ruins the whole of the land where they're at, which is Pride Rock. And he gets the hyenas to come in and live amongst the lions. So basically, when I saw that, I was thinking, hang on a minute, this is just like our story, the story of the Israelites, where our holy land, which is Israel, is currently being inhabited by the heathens. So the hyenas in the story represented the heathens, and they were coming up into Pride Rock, which is the Holy Land, and they were defiling it. So basically, nothing was growing there. All the herds had moved on, or they're basically overhunted, basically, and there was nothing left for anybody to eat. So they were starving there. And Scar was basically an inept ruler. Now Mufasa was a just ruler, because there's a point in the film where he's talking to his son Simba, and he's saying, Simba's asking him like, but the whole kingdom's yours, you can take whatever you want. And Mufasa says that the role of a king isn't to take, but Salaki, roughly paraphrasing, says, the role of being a king isn't about what you can take, but more about what you can give. Now that goes back to the scriptures where Yahweh Shai says the greatest among you will be the servant of all, basically. So basically the king is the one who serves the people, a good king at least. But an unjust king is looking about serving himself and what he can get. And that's basically the spirit of these Edomites. They're all about taking, you know. They they can never be satisfied. That if you give them 10, they want 11. If you give them 11, they want 12. You know what I mean? That's Esau's whole mode of operation, modus operandi, I think, you know? Now, another really interesting thing I noticed in this film was you got these, when after Mufasa gets killed, Simba goes into the wilderness, which is again quite spiritual because, you know, after we left Egypt, we went into the wilderness and we sojourned there for 40 years, I believe. Was it 40 years, I think? But the point is, Simba basically is in exile and he basically gets into a Gentile state of mind where he forgets that he's supposed to be the rightful king of Pride Rock, and he basically starts living like a heathen. Now, you've got these heathen characters in the film. You've got, is it the meerkat and the warthog, Pumbaa and Timon? Basically, when Simba meets up with them, they're basically living in a very carnal mindset. And when I was watching the film, I was thinking, man, they're representative. These two characters, you know, Pumbaa and Timon, they're representative of the spirit of atheism. Because they're basically about, oh, you know, Hakuna Matata, which means no worries. And we just do what we want, you know. Their whole life is basically about eating, sleeping, and farting, basically. There's, you know, stupid fart jokes in the film. So that's basically their whole life, just living a carnal mindset. Now, Simba hooks up with these two characters and he starts to take on that same carnal mindset. So basically, he's basically like 2/3 of Jake right now, living in a Gentile state of mind. And that made me think of Ezekiel 37, you know, prophesying to these bones and see if they can live, you know, which is basically a prophecy of us, Jake, waking up from our, because we've forgotten our history, our heritage, you know, we've discontinued from our heritage. So we had to get these words back in order to remember who we are. Now, eventually, Simba does remember who he is when Beyonce's character Nala comes and she finds him and she says, you know what? He says, oh, you're starting to sound like my father. And she goes, at least one of us is. And then Simba kind of gets a slap upside his head and realizes that, you know, he's forsaken his way. Now, before I get into that, there's another interesting point. There's a point when Simba and his two friends, the warthog and the meerkat, they're lying on their back and they're looking at the stars. And they're saying, I wonder what those dots in the sky are. And they're all making these conjunctures about what they are, like about, oh, they're balls of gas or whatever. And they ask Simba what he thinks. Now, Simba says what his father told him, which is kind of spiritual. He says that the spirits of the kings of old all are up in the heavens and they're looking down on the earth now. And when Simba says that to Pumbaa and Timon, they basically laugh him to scorn. And he gets cut in the spirit and he gets hurt by that, so he goes off by himself. But that's what I mean in the sense that, like, basically Simba's father had told him, okay, this is how things are. But when Simba entered into that Gentile state of mind, he was putting that aside and trying to fit in with the heathen characters. Now that made me think of the scripture where it says, why trimmest thou thy way to seekest love, roughly paraphrasing, you know? And that's like Jake today, where Jake is bending over backwards to try and fit in with, you know, Elam and Esau and Ishmael and all the other heathen nations, rather than coming back to the true knowledge, wisdom and understanding of who he really is. Now, in the film, Simba does come back to the knowledge of who he is when he meets up with this monkey character called Rafiki. Now that's also spiritual because that monkey character represented a prophet in that film, because when Simba was first born, that monkey character is the one who anoints Simba's head. And I was like, man, this is so spiritual, man. You know, I was seeing it. So it kind of reminded me of, like, for example, when Samuel anointed King David to be king, you know, that kind of thing. But the point is the monkey leads Simba to the water and he says, you know, your father's alive. Get Simba to look into the water, and Simba sees the reflection of his father, Mufasa. Now, this is another very spiritual part that happens where the clouds in heaven start to gather overhead. It's lucky I've got the notifications on. The clouds start to gather overhead and Mufasa's voice comes out of the clouds and it says, you are my son and I'm proud of you and all this kind of stuff. And when I saw that, I thought, man, this is straight out of the Bible, man. So let me get the scripture for that. That's Matthew 17:5, I believe. When Yahushua goes up to the mount with his disciples and is transfigured in their sight. And they see his true nature. So Matthew 17:5. Yeah. So let me get it from the top, yeah? Matthew 17:1. And after 6 days Yahushua taketh Peter, James, and John his brother, and bringeth them up unto a high mountain apart. And he was transfigured before them. And as his face did shine as the sun, and his raiment was as white as the light. And behold, there appeared with him Moses and Elias talking with him. Then answered Peter and said unto Yahushua, Lord, is it good for us to be here? If thou wilt, let us make here 3 tabernacles, one for thee, and one for Moses, and one for Elias. Now here's the point, yeah? And while yet he spake, behold, a bright cloud overshadowed them, and behold, a voice out of the cloud which said, This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. Hear ye him. And when the disciples heard it, they fell on their faces and were sore afraid. Now, as we know in the scripture, when it says clouds, sometimes it's referring to chariots. So it could have been a chariot that was overhead. And, they heard this voice coming out of the chariot. But when we're obviously watching things and stuff, we have to be spiritual, not be simple. So in the film The Lion King, what happens is Simba's there, the clouds come overhead, and Mufasa's voice come out of the cloud saying, you are my son, I'm proud of you, and all this kind of stuff. Straight from the scriptures, man. And when I saw that, I was like, damn. But it's not surprising because, when you know these scriptures, everything you watch or everywhere you turn, you're seeing things which are inspired by the Bible. Now, most people don't know this because they're simple and they don't understand, the scriptures. But honestly, man, when you have this knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, you just see this truth everywhere. So ultimately, what happens in the film is Simba goes back to the Holy Land, Pride Rock, and he fights to regain his kingdom, and he defeats his uncle Scar. And there's fire everywhere. The whole earth gets burnt up, which again is spiritual. We know that the nukes are going to burn Babylon to a crisp, which is America, Babylon the Great, and they're going to hit all over the earth. The scriptures say the earth will reel to and fro as a drunkard. But the point is that the fire cleanses the earth, and then Simba regains his real, true place, his true kingdom. And then he goes on to rule, and, they have a happily ever after where Simba has his child. And that's basically the story of Israel, basically. We're eventually going to get our land back, and we're going to be kings over the whole earth. So I just thought that was very, very spiritual. And again, when I watched it in 1994, the original animated version, I felt it was a deep story. But now I'm older and I understand, the Holy Scriptures. I just saw so much more in it. So I thought I'd do a lesson on it. So Lord willing, that has been edifying. I'm not going to make this much longer because we're coming up to the 30-minute mark. But with that, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bah Hashem Yahushai, Bah Hashem Rakakadash, double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone who rule well, and shalom to all you Arkim who pushing this word around the globe in faith and in sincerity. And until the next time I'm able to do a lesson, Lord willing, I say shalom.